everyone. If you've ever worked on a piece of software, tested a new feature, or, just used an app that completely crashed on you right when you needed it, you already know testing is absolutely vital. Today, we're diving into an explainer on the fundamental guidelines that'll take you from a standard tester to a true software guardian. We're talking about ditching the random trial and error and stepping into a highly disciplined engineering mindset. We're basically going to build a completely new framework for how you look at software quality.
But before we get into the actual rules, I want to throw a fundamental question your way. Can you scientifically prove a software is 100% bug-free? Really think about that for a second. You run thousands of automated tests. You've got a massive QA team. You spend months clicking literally every conceivable button. Does all that give you absolute, scientific certainty that there are 0 bugs left?
Well, spoiler alert, the answer is no. Absolutely not. But a software guardian can get incredibly close. The principles we're about to cover today, they're practical truths. They're designed to help you build better strategies, manage those tricky stakeholder expectations, and make sure every ounce of effort you put into testing actually counts. Because we can't hit absolute perfection, we really need a solid rulebook to navigate the messy realities of software development.
Okay, let's jump right into this with rule number 1, the illusion of perfection. There's this massive disconnect between what people think testing does and what it actually does. The common myth? That testing proves the absence of bugs. But the reality is that testing just reduces the risk of failure. This is huge. It's one of the most critical principles in the Guardian rulebook. Testing shows the presence of defects, not their absence. Your core job is to find bugs and just lower the probability of hidden defects ruining the final product. So even if your test suite comes back perfectly green, 0 bugs found, that is not a certificate of absolute perfection. It just means you've lowered the risk to a manageable level based on the specific tests you ran. And why can't we hit that magical 100%? Because we are dealing with endless variables. It's a hard truth of the industry, but exhaustive testing is mathematically impossible. Think about it for a second. Testing every single combination of data, every weird user input, every sequence of preconditions, it's just unachievable for any non-trivial app. The sheer volume of permutations would take literal lifetimes to get through. If you try to test absolutely everything, you're just going to exhaust your budget, your timeline, and honestly, yourself.
So what do we do about this impossibility? We tackle it through risk assessment and prioritization. Instead of trying to boil the ocean, an elite tester focuses all their energy right on the high-risk areas. You use targeted techniques like boundary value analysis, which is where you test the extreme edges of your inputs, to push the software to its absolute limits. By doing it this way, you achieve maximum coverage, but with a highly manageable, focused number of test cases. You're not testing harder, you're testing smarter. Moving right along to rule number 2, the cost of delay. $0. Zilch. That is essentially what it costs to fix a major bug when you catch it early. A software guardian knows testing shouldn't be shoved to the very end of development. It needs to start the exact moment those requirements or design documents are available. If you're in a brainstorming session and you catch a fundamental misunderstanding of what the software is supposed to do, you just erase it with a whiteboard marker. The cost to fix it right then and there is basically 0. But let's flip that and look at the dark side. $10,000 or way more. The cost of fixing a bug goes up exponentially the longer it sits there. That exact same requirement misunderstanding we just talked about, if nobody catches it and it gets coded, tested, and actually shipped to the public, the cost skyrockets. Now you're pulling developers off new features to write panicked hotfixes, you're annoying your users, and worst of all, you're doing serious damage to your brand's reputation. Catching it early is literally your ultimate protective shield. And this brilliantly illustrates our third rule, the pesticide paradox. This is such a fascinating reality in our field. If you keep running the exact same set of test cases over and over again, they will eventually just stop finding new bugs. Why? Well, it's exactly like agriculture. If a farmer uses the same pesticide year after year, the bugs develop a resistance to it. In software, your code essentially adjusts to your old tests. Developers fix the specific, narrow paths that your current test suite covers, so the software becomes immune to your old tricks. Meanwhile, completely new bugs are just hiding out in the uncharted territory you aren't even testing anymore. So, to remain an effective software guardian, you've got to fight this paradox with a continuous loop. Step 1, consistently review your old tests. Step 2, update specific paths to account for how the software has evolved.
And step 3, constantly add new test cases to your suite. You have to keep your strategies fresh to uncover different defects out in completely different parts of the system. You have to constantly evolve, simply because the software is constantly evolving. Which brings us to our final rule. Number 4, context and real value. Look, testing is incredibly context dependent. If you're building a banking app, the testing rigor has to be sky high, right? Your primary focus is ironclad security and down to the penny accuracy. But what if you're testing a casual mobile game? The rigor might be a lot lower, and the focus shifts entirely to the user experience. Are the animations smooth? Is it actually fun to play? You would never test a casual game with the exact same strategy as a massive financial institution. A true Guardian gets that the environment and the purpose dictate the whole approach. And that brings us to perhaps the most important question of this entire explainer. Imagine you run all your tests and boom, you find 0 bugs. Your code is technically pristine. But does your software actually solve the user's problem? This is what we call the absence of errors fallacy. Finding and fixing every single bug is completely useless if the system is a nightmare to use, or if it just fails to fulfill the user's actual needs. A software guardian doesn't just scan for code errors, they fiercely protect the real value of the product. They ensure a seamless, valuable experience for the actual living, breathing human at the other end of the screen. So I'll leave you with this to think about. Are you just out there hunting for bugs? Or are you actually guaranteeing value? Keep that question in the back of your mind the next time you sit down to test.